A whole new global talk show, Newstellers. Let's meet our panel of international journalists. A video clip of two scantily clad men attaching fireworks to a drone, setting it off and then being chased around a snow-covered field has recently gone viral. So it seems that more and more people are doing reckless things with drones like these men, as you saw in the video. And the clip had netizens, some of them commenting that the chasing part is funny but seems dangerous, others suggesting that drones be used by the police to catch criminals. So very
it was
different
dangerous.
uses
That's
there.
why it was fun. Like,
Yeah.
that was, yeah.
It's a little bit ridiculous. We wouldn't advise our viewers to do this.
Oh, come on. My friends and I played with Roman candles when we were kids
Oh,
all the time.
really?
It's not dangerous.
But it looks like they get a little bit burned, right?
Yeah, I know you definitely shouldn't, if you're going to play with Roman candles, you definitely shouldn't wear clothes that are flammable.
Oh, that's why they're half naked on the video?
Well, that might have just been to make it funnier.
I think it's more than 1 million views on YouTube, so maybe you should
Wow.
try and see if you
I'm
can
sure
beat
if
that.
I would have had a drone when I was in high school or university, I totally would have put Roman candles onto it. Yeah.
Oh, such a well-behaved panel. I love it. Anyway, as we can see, these unmanned aircraft are flying into our lives. Do you like what I did there? So let's get into today's topic, double-edged drones. It's so loud.
Take a seat.
Oh no, that way, that way. There we go.
Hey, welcome to Newstellers. Yeah.
We have a special
nice.
guest panelist this week.
So drones, welcome little drone. They seem to be everywhere these days. So can you guys think of any news stories that have been out recently about the use of drones?
Well, Amazon has been talking for almost a year about its Prime Air service, which
Yeah.
would be using drones to deliver packages to customers. They say that with their service, it would take 30 minutes or less to get
Wow.
your autographed Star Wars memorabilia or your box of rubber chickens, whatever you want to order.
I wanted to talk about something that happened in the UK. There was a restaurant called Your Sushi that they
I used to go there a
invented
lot.
the iTray. It's like a kind of a drone waiter. They serve you the food with the drone. They just you are. I mean, it's not really useful. It's more for fun because you are outside the restaurant and I mean a waiter could just come, but they just send a drone and the drone brings you the tray with the food and you can just enjoy your sushi there. I brought the
Interesting.
drone and you can tell your friends, you can make a selfie. So it's pretty
Perfectly
good commercial use of
Cool
drone.
use.
And that's really the important thing, is to be able to take a selfie and tell your friends about it. I read a
Man, we're in
story.
the 21st century, of
Yes.
course.
Well, I read a story about also in the UK about a couple that used a drone to like document their holidays. You know, they went and they looked at sites and looked at the type of things that all tourists do when we go abroad, but instead of just using their phones or using a camera, they use this drone to take what were some pretty interesting images of the places.
There is a French company that just is selling a similar drone. It's a very small drone. You don't have to control it. It just follows you automatically and takes picture of yourself, of you, and even films. So there is a video where the guy is snowboarding and is going downhill, and his little drone is following him and shooting the video. That was pretty impressive. There is this Star Wars feel a little bit.
All right, so the world has got its eye on drones, it seems, and there's even a new term coined specifically for the use of drones in journalism, namely drone journalism. So can anyone explain to me what is drone journalism and how powerful do you think drones are in media?
Drone journalism is using a drone with a camera attached to it to collect images from. It could be a wide range of places. I think one place where drones are particularly useful is in kind of like difficult to access terrain.
If you go back to the 2013 Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, I think that was one of the first examples where drone journalism for television reporting was essential, because you had the city of Tacloban and the surrounding areas that was absolutely devastated from the typhoon and the flooding that came after it. So for television crews there, you couldn't get access to some of the disaster sites or even see where victims could be. So drones became an absolutely essential aspect of reporting from that disaster.
Another example is in Gaza Strip, in the Palestinian territories. The BBC broadcast some pretty striking images of the destruction after Israeli attack. I mean, I think drones allows you to see images that you cannot see from the ground, and you see how, like, after the attack, like, full apartment was completely razed to the ground.
So I think it's a really, really good thing for journalism these days because they allow the people to know more. Of course, it's not going to replace any traditional way of journalism because people still want the stories. But you can see a lot of things. You can access to some areas, like, for example, from in Nepal, we saw those images of the drones. And so I think, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think it's totally a really good improvement for journalism.
I mean, I agree with you, it's useful, it's good for TV images, but on the other side, I don't think it's a game changer. I think journalism is still about human stories and you need to meet people. And if newsrooms start to, when there is a demonstration, they start to send a drone instead of going there by themselves, I think that may be a bit dangerous.
Fred, I don't think drones can replace human reporters. Of course not.
Course.
But I think that it is a complementary resource for journalists. Even the University of Nebraska in the U.S. has started a drone journalism lab, and other schools have experimented with this as well. But yeah, I think journalism of the future will involve the use of drones as an accessory to the reporting.
So I think all of you think that drone journalism is pretty much here to stay. It's being used in some countries, but you think they will never replace human reporters, and rather it's a complementary tool. Can you think of any other specific examples of drone journalism that you've come across?
About a year ago, when in the kind of long aftermath of the sinking of the ferry, the owner of Cheonghaejin Marine, Lee Byung-un, he had gone, he was kind of AWOL, he was avoiding being questioned by the authorities, and there were questions as to whether or not he was holed up in Ansang, Gyeonggi province, where he's a senior member of this church that has been referred to by some as a cult, and they have this big compound, and the followers of this religion or religious sect had all kind of barricaded the entrance. I went down there and I did a story for the Los Angeles Times, but a friend of ours who was a cameraman for Al Jazeera English, he situated himself in front of the compound's entrance and he used his drone to fly up and take footage of inside the compound.
Really?
You know, this religious group were barring reporters from entering. So that's an example of a drone being used to get access and to at least get images.
Yeah, I saw in Poland recently that there was a big demonstration. It was a really violent demonstration between radicals from the right and the left. And some journalists, they just put a drone on in the air, and the drone was taking some footage of the demonstration. Really, really interesting that after that the journalist can analyze and can talk about it and can get some interesting data. And also, you know, for example, in this case, in the demonstrations, there are always problems with the numbers. Like the authorities said that there were 3,000 people, the demonstrators said that there were 1 million. You know, so it's always that you never know how many people there were. So probably the drones can help us to solve those problems.
I think another good example was in 2013, National Geographic sent a team to the Serengeti in Tanzania, Africa, to get pictures of lions. Now, of course, you just can't rock up to a pride of lions with your camera and try to get close-ups. You're going to get eaten. So they instead flew a drone in and snapped like somewhere around like 240,000 images of this pride of lions, including some nighttime shots of lions in let's say, an intimate moment.
What were the lions' reactions to the drones?
The lions did not eat the drones or anything like that. The staff that was accompanying this National Geographic expedition said that, you know, they were curious at first, but then after a while just paid no attention to the drones buzzing around them.
They just thought it was another type of bird,
I guess so.
presumably.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. So it seems that anyone can really buy one of these little aircraft and use them pretty much however they want. And since they're not strictly controlled, they can be prone to accidents or some misuse as well. A drug smuggler's drone flying from Mexico to the US border was caught by the Tijuana Municipal Police. It seems the smugglers got a little bit greedy, overloading the aerial vehicle with 6 pounds of crystal meth, enough for about 100,000 people apparently. And the drone, unable to withstand the weight of the load, crash landed in a parking lot near the border where it was found by police. So we've talked about drones being used for good, but evidently they're also being used for criminal purposes. Let's talk about some other general problems that arise with the use of drones.
There is an example I really like, I saw in the news recently, is I found a drone carrying radioactive materials on the roof of the house of Shinzo Abe, the Japanese Prime Minister.
Wow.
And it turned out that he was an anti-nuclear activist, somebody who opposed the fact that Japan now wants to restart its nuclear reactors.
I thought it was
How
from
did they get
Amazon.
How did they get their hands on the radioactive material, though?
crazy.
Yeah, and
That's even
but
scarier.
it was not as radioactive to harm people. So it was just
okay, wow.
partially radioactive.
But still, it's impressive that in terms of security, you cannot prevent this kind of action. So you can imagine all kind of terrorist attacks.
Sure.
using
Well, even
drones.
talk about security. Earlier this year in Washington, D.C., a guy was flying his drone late at night, and it crash landed in the worst place possible, on the lawn of the White House. He's not being charged with any crime. The authorities believed it was an accident, but he still might face penalties from the Federal Aviation Administration.
Wow.
There's plenty of other accidents happening too. A couple years back in New York, a guy was flying his drone around the city, bumped into a skyscraper, crashed to the streets of Manhattan, and then it was picked up by some passerby who was almost struck by the object, and then that footage was turned over to a local television station.
So we've got some safety concerns as well. I mean, just look at it. To me, it seems pretty big. If you have like 50 of those flying around, which might happen in the next few years, conceivably.
Sujong, wasn't there a case over in England recently about a drone almost crashing into a plane that was landing near Heathrow?
That's right, yes.
Right, and I guess the concern there is that the drones will get sucked into the engine of the plane, which would potentially bring the aircraft down. We saw that happen in 2009 when birds struck a plane flying over Manhattan, and the pilot had to land in the Hudson River. If a drone got caught up too in the engine, the same thing could happen.
Yeah, of course. I think airports and it should be like a drone-free zone.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think the authorities should take out of care of that. Like people shouldn't fly drones near the airports, and it should be controlled. But out of those places, probably there can be an accident, the drone can crash, whatever. But it didn't seem that all over the world there had been many accidents or many dead people because of the drones. If you have the exception of military purposes.
Well, there are a lot of dead people from drones, but the irony there is that those deaths are not the result of accidents. They're the result of drones being used for a specific purpose. I think the most troublesome use that drones are being put to is they're the next phase in the dehumanization of war. They make it possible for militaries to carry out deadly strikes and to kill people. And what drones do is they remove the human connection from acts of violence.
I agree with Steven. One of the problems of this military drone is that you keep your hands clean. You don't get your hand dirty. And I read this very interesting article about this pilot in the US. I mean, in the morning, she woke up, she take coffee, have breakfast with her kid, drove her kid to school. Then she goes to the control center of drone, kills people in Pakistan, in Middle East, using drone, and then come back home and start a life as if nothing happened. So basically, you're able to wage a war by pretending to have your hands clean, and that's really, really problematic.
Also, there's a really, really big concern because these devices are small and very cheap and very easy to get, and terrorism is a really global big problem these days, and it's even rising. Sure. So some terrorists can just get a drone and put a bomb on it and kill people.
There are
anywhere.
reports that ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, they have acquired drones, according to some reports that I've seen, but they're quite rudimentary and they're not anywhere at the level of what the US military or the Israeli military have. But right, it raises concerns how they could be used.
And more than bombs, if you put chemicals or like biochemical weapons, and I think it can be devastating.
No, drones enhance the abilities of whoever uses them, whether they be terrorists, whether they be military generals, whether they be journalists, to do the work that they've always done, but just find a new way to unleash that.
It's a very difficult issue because obviously drones can be used for so much good. You can drop off food packages in Africa, for example.
And nowadays we have this, real profusion of technology where these things are cheaper and they're easier to get a hold of, and that's good in some ways, but it also raises the possibility that it could fall into the wrong hands. But as
Indeed.
we've seen with the example of the US government, even when big, powerful institutions have drones, sometimes they cause more harm than, you know, all of the rambunctious kids and it could.
I just want to step in not that I'm trying to defend American foreign policy or military policy, but I mean, the fact of the matter is if they do send a drone in to smoke out someone, a wanted terrorist, it's right. I completely agree with you, Stephen, about the ethical problems of dehumanizing war, but sometimes the job has to get done.
He's a wanted terrorist based on what information? He hasn't been convicted
this
of anything.
is all contextual.
The problem is you kill a lot of innocent. Like for one terrorist you kill, maybe you create 10 because you see
Right,
you kill a lot of
That's
innocents.
the bad thing, but maybe
Yeah.
if you, I'm with Jason in that issue. That maybe if you want to kill a really dangerous terrorist, maybe with a drone you can go on. Maybe you only kill him. If you do an airstrike, you maybe destroy 10 houses. And in the means of war, I don't think drones should be worse than
You know
than
that
other
now there is an
weapons.
international movement to try to convince the UN to ban all kind of killing automatic machines. And I think it's good because very soon we have the technology to make machines that are able to walk in the street of Baghdad and shoot at people automatically. And I think drones should be part of that debate. And I do think that UN should really step in and put international regulation now. Even though some countries like US will probably not respect it, at least it will be against some kind of international law.
Because you have the potential for it to become almost like a video game.
Yeah,
you know, you're
we're
not
very
there,
close to that, actually.
You don't really face the consequences. They don't seem like real people.
Yeah.
It's a really thorny issue. So we've covered both the benefits and the problems of drones, and they are becoming more prevalent throughout the world. Can you think of any examples where they've been used in Korea for governmental or civilian purposes?
Yeah, recently it was used by firemen. There was this big forest fire in Kangwon area.
Right.
And you know the problem is at night there is still remaining embers, and
Yeah.
it's very difficult to detect them using helicopter at night. So you can use it. They did use these small drones and were able to put out the fire thanks to
The remaining embers.
It's a good example of good use.
Indeed.
South Korean police are using drones to monitor traffic. Unfortunately, South Korea has earned the reputation of having some of the most dangerous roads in the developed world. So now authorities are using it to see who's breaking the law, and they're equipped with cameras that can zoom right in on license plate numbers. A colleague of ours at Al Jazeera shot a video using his own drone to show these police drones in use.
So drones are legal in Korea, are they?
Well, I think we're talking about government use here. I mean, like the Korean government has used drones for a lot of different, you know, uses. Like before they carried out like infrastructure projects, like you know, quarries or tunnels or different kinds of land development. Their drones were used to survey scenes, but and also in the example that Jason just gave, like those were uses of drones by the government.
Right.
Uses of drones by civilians is another question.
Yeah, but I think the legislation in Korea is pretty light. It's not like in the US that you ban it for commercial purposes. So here, the bigger television channels, they use drones. They have their drones to inform and.
Arirang uses drones very proficiently in some
Yeah,
of
we
the
have
reporting
our
I've seen.
friend.
Right here in Newstellers.
Yeah.
And something that I was impressed last year, I went to 2 weddings in Korea, and at 2 weddings they used drones to shoot pictures from above.
Oh, really?
And one of them, they had a bag with flower
Confetti?
petal, confetti,
Yeah.
and they just released the confetti above people. And
Interesting.
Yeah.
Drones can even be romantic.
So what kind of legal measures do you think should be taken or enforced with the use of drones? I know in America it's still very tightly controlled, but they're in the process of changing that legislation.
Right. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, they are slowly working on their guidelines for the use of drones by businesses as well as the public. But right, everyone right now is kind of left up in the air, so to speak, about how they can legally use drones in the US.
I think the restrictions should apply to private spaces, key facilities like airports or nuclear plants and stuff. And out of that, I think there should be a legislation that allows to develop the world of drones and to make a good and promote to make a good use of them.
I mean, those are regulations that I think are already in place for other kinds of flying objects, like with planes and stuff. Like we already have rules when it comes to airspace. You know, we already have rules when it comes to how and when. Like I guess a big difference is with planes. There's a sort of transportation infrastructure where you have to get permission from the like flight center command. I mean, maybe we'll need to have someday a drone center command, like a government body where if you want to fly your drone, you have to. I mean, I don't know. That's probably excessive, but again, I think drones are a really good illustration of how technology moves faster than government regulations.
I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where they need traffic signals for drones because there are so many flying around in the air. Any other legal measures that you think need to be taken?
I agree with Steven. I hope we can find some cheap technology, some kind of a chip you can put on the drone that would be able to locate each other and avoid the drones to collide into each other, collide into building, into people. Some kind of a simple technology.
Preventing people from using drones while intoxicated would also be a law that I'd like
Indeed,
to see.
indeed. In many ways, it's like driving, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's why maybe in the case of bigger drones that they can go hundreds of kilometers, they should be like all like licensed and they should have a plate with their number and with their owner. So that would make the owner to make a responsible use of it.
So drones, I think, are emerging as the latest multi-technology gadget after smartphones and the internet. They're the next big thing. And I think we here at Newstellers, we're excited about seeing the new generation of drones and what they have to offer, but a little bit nervous, perhaps, about the harm that they might bring as well. All right, so as always, let's wrap up with our final headlines on today's topic. Why don't we start with Jason today?
Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, no, it's a drone, and it's either going to kill you or snap your photo.
Blunt. Atta.
Well, I would say drones, the flying technology of the new era.
Okay.
I will try catchy headlines like invasion of the drones, hopes and fears.
Sounds like a movie.
Mine's gonna
And
be short.
Steven?
Don't let drones dehumanize.
Okay, I think that covers some of the issues that we talked about today. Thank you so much for a fascinating debate on a technology that I think is going to become much, much more prevalent in the coming years. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll join us again next week for another fascinating topic. And join us next week, my lovely viewers, for the next episode of a whole new global talk show, Newstellers. We will be open for any opinions or requests on our official website as well as our Facebook page. Oh, it's so scary. Oh my God.